All right, Scott, you know how I like to ruin your interviews, but here was a potential question for Ken. In the last 20 years, now I'm not counting Serge Savard, 93 Montreal Canadiens, but in the last 20, it's weird. Only one general manager of a championship team in the last 20 years was a player in the NHL. I don't count you, Ken, or Jim Rutherford, two goaltenders, which is interesting in and of itself. But only one player. That was Bob Gainey with the Dallas Stars in 1990. You look at Lombardi, Chiarelli, Stan Bowman, Ray Shero, Brian Burke, Jay Feaster, Lou Lamoriello, Ken, of course, Pierre Lacroix, all the Neil Smith. It's weird. And because McTavish got hired, Craig in Edmonton, and because they thought maybe he could be as successful as Marc Bergevin's been in Montreal this year. Ken, do you have an answer to that? Why it is that an active player, only one of them in the last 20 years, has been a Cup champion GM?
No, I don't have an answer for that. I was fortunate to work with Jim Devillin and with Scotty Bowman, two Hall of Famers, and spend a lot of time on the road scouting. But luck of the draw, I guess.
You quite possibly are the most successful 12th round draft pick ever. But all that success, as Ron's pointed out, has come as a general manager, not as a player. And you have managed the Wings to 3 Stanley Cups, although, Ken, your goal this year is much more modest, and that's just to make the playoffs. Single point tonight, still in the hunt, not above the cut line. What do you make of your chances now?
Well, every point is huge. Obviously, we're going now home for a 3-game homestand. We play Phoenix. Obviously, they won a big game tonight. On the road, so I think we're a point behind Columbus and a point ahead of Dallas and a point or two ahead of Phoenix. So we control our own fate, and they think that's all you want to do in sports.
We have a very different lineup. Obviously, you can't replace the likes of a Nicklas Lidstrom, but you look on your back end with De Keyser playing the way he did, your younger players really stepping up. Is there a lot of positive signs in this year? Even though you're in a fight for the playoffs, you've seen a lot of positives from your younger players?
Yeah, absolutely. To come in here to Vancouver and hold them to 13 shots. I think we held Calgary to 7 shots the last 2 periods the other night in Calgary. We're playing good defense. There's a lot of kids in the back end. Obviously, we'd like to score a little bit more. We've lost 3 of the last 5 games in a shootout. Those are huge points, but you got to get in. When you look at history, the 8th place LA Kings went on and won the Stanley Cup last year. So, it's like I told somebody earlier this week, a big difference between 8-1 versus 8-9. So, if you get in, you got a chance. We're just looking to play our way in and have an opportunity to get in the tournament and see what we can do.
Ken, you knew heading into the season, whenever it was to start, that the focus on the Wings would be all about life after Nick. And we can fairly say that any team, no matter how talent-laden it is, would be worse off for not having a player like Nick Lidstrom. Here's a tweet from Michael Cullihill. Please ask Ken Holland when Lidstrom is coming out of retirement, enough is enough. You don't have to answer that, but what he's doing is expressing the sentiment of a lot of fans. So I guess the question is, how much of your struggle this season can be traced to Nick Lidstrom's retirement?
Well, a large part. And I think also, we lost Brad Stewart. He wanted to go back and be with his family in San Jose. A year earlier, we lost Brian Rafalski. So, we're rebuilding or transitioning or however you want on the fly. Obviously, we want to make the playoffs, but Nick Lidstrom was, I would say he's the most valuable player of his era. I got to watch him every night. He played 28 minutes a night against the other team's best players, power play, penalty killing. We were always good on specialty teams. Late in the game, he was on the ice. He's a superstar. He's going to the Hall of Fame. He's one of the greatest defensemen to ever play the game. When you look at our team today, there's a lot of young defensemen there that we think can be real good pros for a long time. So, we're number 1, I think, in the league in man games lost to injury, and there's some real good time being learned, not only on defense but up front. And again, it's a big week for us, and we got to win. Right now, we got to win a game Monday night. We got a big game against Phoenix.
You always said you'd retire when Nick Lidstrom did. Were you just joking?
Apparently.
You know what? I got 2 kids getting married this summer.
Now's not the time. Huh? When you see yourself try to rebuild this organization, you go back to the past. You've seen Nick Lidstrom play only with one team all that long and be a superstar. Steve Yzerman prior to that with the same organization. What does it say to young players like De Keyser, who you were able to woo and come to your team, about the organization, the fact that the guys would stick there and stay there for that long a period of time?
Well, obviously, Detroit's a great sports city. when people come there, I mean, there's a lot of players, even from the 80s, even before we won the Stanley Cup, that finished their career and lived there. Chris Chelios has made a home there now. Yep. Chris Draper's made a home. It's a great place to raise your children. The people of Detroit love their sports teams. So, the other thing, obviously, we always had a chance to win the Stanley Cup. So, as an athlete, you want a chance to compete for the Stanley Cup. And we, with the nucleus that we had, we provided that opportunity. And we're trying to obviously rebuild here. And we haven't picked high enough to get superstars to come in. But if we can get enough real good, solid pros, I think that we can continue to compete for a playoff spot.
Well, on that topic, you will draft higher this year than you have in years previous, and you just said it's not just Nick Lidstrom. It's
well, we're hoping to make the playoffs and get to the Final Four.
Well,
then,
all right.
Then we'd pick late.
Okay, good.
29th or 30th.
That's right. Yeah.
That's good.
Well, no, but you didn't trade anybody. You didn't make any deals at the trade deadline because you were trying to protect those draft picks.
Yeah.
But look, here's the question. You just said it's not just Nick Lidstrom. It was Rafalski last year, Brad Stewart this year. Detroit used to be the preferred destination for free agents from Brett Hull to Marian Hossa. Are you faced now with the somewhat stark reality that the rest of the league is dealing with it? It's now a draft and development league.
Oh, without a doubt. I think it's the same for everybody. I think that you really can afford to probably, in a cap world, sign up one or two free agents, and then after that, it's a lot of drafting, it's a lot of developing. And I've been in the business as a scout since 1985. Patience is needed. When you're dealing with 21 and 22 and 23-year-old kids. Grand Rapids just last night clinched first place in their division. They got a lot of kids down there that we think are going to Landon Ferraro and Thomas Jerko and Riley Sheehan and Thomas Tatar. So we've got some kids, some forwards coming through the organization. Again, I'm not going to tell you they're superstars, but we think we've got a lot of real good, solid players that can develop into real good pros. And in the meantime, you hope that one or two players turns out to be better than what you had hoped, and we can continue. We can compete. And when you look at the standings, we're 2 or 3 wins from being in the middle of the pack. Mm-hmm. So it's not like we're a million miles away and we're 20 points out of a playoff spot. The league is real close, and I think that Darren Helm's an important guy in our team. We got Mike Samuelson out. Yeah. We got Todd Bertuzzi. We get some of these guys back next year, and the experience that some of our young players have learned. I don't see us. I see us with the potential to have a bounce back year.
How important was it then to get Jimmy Howard signed? I mean, you look at goaltending and the importance of that role. If you're looking to build with all these young players, was that top on the list coming?
Without a doubt. He's 29 years of age, or just turned 29 in the last month. He's a workhorse. He's come through our system. We know him. He's really competitive. He gives us a chance to win every night. I would say that he's one of our, along with Zetterberg and Pav and Kroner and one or two other guys, he's one of our most important players. He's really coming into the prime of his career. I think a prime years for a goalie are probably 27 to 32, 33 years of age, because you factor in, I think for a goaltender it's important to have experience and to know the league. And he's a workhorse. He's a guy that we want to build around.
We've got a couple of minutes left. There's a couple of points I want to hit here. One is, and this is a tweet from Gary James, that you sort of addressed this when you talked about the ability to sign free agents versus what it once was. What's the biggest adjustment you've had to make in the NHL on your tenure as a GM? Because time was, you could get almost whoever you wanted. You could spend freely, but it's been different since 04-05.
Well, Scott, I think, when you go back 10 years, there was 6 or 8 of us that were in the free agent market. It was Colorado, Detroit, Dallas, Philadelphia, the Rangers, Toronto, 1 or 2 other teams. Everybody's in the game. Everybody. That's the beauty of the cap world. Everybody has a chance when the year starts. I think every fan of every team believes they have a chance. So to your point earlier, we're drafting and developing. We got a lot of kids. I think that I think the future is brighter in Detroit than maybe a lot of people think. Mm-hmm. But I get to watch all these young players, and I think that the nucleus of our team, even though it's a little bit older, still has a lot of hockey left in it.
Does this 21-year streak, as you struggle to make the playoffs this year, almost feel like a burden?
No, I don't think. Obviously we want to make it 22. I think the biggest thing is everybody in that locker room wants a chance to compete for the Stanley Cup when the tournament starts in 10 days. And I've said it all for the last few years. You just got to get in. We obviously got beat by the Edmonton Oilers in 2005-06 when we were the 1 seed and had 126 points. The regular season, for me, throw the stats in the garbage and you start from scratch on the first night of the playoffs. So we want a chance.
One of the most exciting things looking ahead to next year, too, is the Winter Classic. And I know it had to be a huge disappointment this year for your organization, but what does it mean that it's being revamped for next year, and what will it mean to the Ilitch family and Detroit?
Well, let's put an addendum on that question. You're going to be one of 6 this time.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah.
You're going to be the only one if it had gone this year.
We'll call it's the main one.
Yeah, it's the big one. It's the big one.
But you know, I'm thrilled for the fans of Detroit, for the city of Detroit. You know, our people have big plans starting the middle of December. We want to have outdoor games at Comerica Park, minor hockey games, and leading up high school games and public skating. We want to make it a festival downtown to really celebrate the sport of hockey and we create a buzz in downtown Detroit. Obviously, everybody's aware of the last few years, the challenges of the city of Detroit, but it's on the rebound, and you know, for the most part, we're sold out every night. And then from Christmas on, we're going to have Great Lakes Invitational, OHL doubleheader. We're going to have the alumni game, American Hockey League game. So it's going to be 2 weeks. You know, and obviously go to play the Toronto Maple Leafs with 110,000 people, and a lot of passion, a lot of history, a lot of energy. It's going to be an incredible 2 weeks in Detroit.
We'll leave it at this, Ken. I made that smart aleck comment at the start about you being the most successful 12th round draft pick ever. It was 1975 when the Leafs took you 188th overall.
Was it 11th or 12th round?
I think it was the 12th, and they only have 7 now, so that's all. But anyway.
Look at that hair.
Look at that, yeah.
Played 4 games in the NHL.
Good style,
When did you realize you'd be better off in management?
Yeah, you know what? Probably my first NHL game in the 6th year when we played against the New York Rangers. It was 6-1 after 2 periods, and I can remember going out for the 3rd period thinking to myself, I'm never going to see the National Hockey League ever again. And they actually broke the pane of glass, and I thought, you know, this is my 5 minutes
Skate
of fame.
around and watch it.
So I really enjoyed it, and fortunately I'm still in the league.
That you are, as the most successful general manager of your time. 16 years as GM of the Detroit Red Wings. No matter what happens this year, no one can match that currently, that's for sure. So our thanks to Ken Holland for joining us in After Hours. Corey Schneider sits in when we return live to Rogers Arena in Vancouver.